Today I will show you my exact web design process from onboarding the client to the finished website and all the steps in between. I break down every web design project into 5 individual sections. It's onboarding and preparation, design, development, launch, and offboarding. So let's get started. When I got started in web design, I had a problem that I procrastinated on my projects and I didn't really had a clear path to follow, which caused me to be overwhelmed and not doing the work. This process I'm going to show you helped me fix that. On a glance, I'm now able to see where which client is sitting and what the next steps are. So let's get into it. So section 1 is onboarding. The first step in onboarding after they signed up and signed the contract, I sent over an onboarding email with an explanation video of what the next steps are and how the process looks like. And they also get the link to schedule the onboarding call, which is then also the second step in section 1. Next up in section 1 we have the preparation, and there are multiple steps inside of preparation because it's so much easier to work with the client if you have done all the prep work, you know what you're going to create, and you basically have everything from your client. So the first step in building a website is basically creating a website sitemap, which is basically just the structure of the website and the structure of the individual pages and which section you create for which page. I use Claude for this exact process. I have a default prompt that I use every time, and it makes creating the sitemap pretty easy. And if you have talk to your client and you know the goals that they are trying to go for, and if there are specific things they want to have on their website, you definitely have to include that inside the sitemap, but you can do that with AI really quickly. Next step is then sending the sitemap to the client and let them approve it, because we want to make sure that the client is aligned with everything that we are creating and that we are not creating a full-blown website with everything and the client at the end of the day is not satisfied with it, because that was what was happening at the beginning for me. I was just creating a website for the client after they signed, and after all the work I then started to realize, okay, that wasn't really the thing that the client was going to want. So now it's broken down in individual steps and the client has to approve each step before we actually go and make all the big moves and create the design. Next step in that direction is creating the color combinations. So in my agency I have a few color combinations that are pre-done if the client does not have their own colors. And most of the times when I start working with a new client, they don't have color combinations. They are completely new. They maybe have a accent color, but that's it. And so I have everything set up before working with them. It's all templatized, and they I select one for them and send them over, but they basically can also pick one. And so after choosing the color combinations, I send them the combinations over and let them approve it. Same thought process. We want to have the client on board on each step just to make sure everything is aligned. So next up is then the font pairs. Same goes for that. It's everything templatized. I have 6 predefined font pairs, and based on the client I pick one, I send it to them and let them approve it. And so if the client is not satisfied, for example, let's say with the color combination or the font pairs or even the structure of the website, you always can go back and improve based on the feedback. But at this point, it's not that much work. So it's so much easier to work on the sitemap, for example, and improve it to the way the client is satisfied with it than revamping the entire design that you already created. So it's important that you do all the prep work in the beginning. And then after we have the color combinations, the fonts, and also the website structure and sitemap, then we create all the website content using the sitemap and AI. I don't mess with clients sending me their content or using the exact content they send me on the website, because most of the times you get so much content that it's not usable. Clients have no idea which content is enough to use on a website. So what I do is let them fill out a pretty long onboarding form where like I ask all the questions like the services, like what they are offering, what makes them unique and everything. And based with like those informations, I use the sitemap to create like all the website content using AI. You could send them the content as well and let them approve, but in my opinion, at this point, we can like move to the next step, which is design, and let the client improve on the design step. So then we move into section number 2, which is basically the design step. And in this step, we start creating the design using AI. So I use Gemini 3 in the AI studio. And basically, it depends on the project, but like most of the times I start with the sitemap and the content and like a rough like style direction I want to go with. And then I just start playing around with the sections, improving everything, making sure that like the fonts are correct, the color combinations are correct, and like everything looks professional. And that's actually what I'm currently doing with the current client. So I'm currently in this step right here where I'm building like the design in Gemini 3. And so after you are done with the website in Gemini 3, which shouldn't take too long, to be honest, like Gemini 3 is really good at creating designs, you want to send the design to the client. And for this step, I use a software called Pastel. And the great thing about Pastel is that the client can give feedback on the website. So they can click on the part they want to change, they can submit their feedback, and also what's really important, you can pause feedback. So let's say you have like 3 revision rounds, you can stop the feedback for revision round 1, then you can create a version 2, and then you can collect feedback again. So the software I'm using is, as I said, is Pastel. And you can see like the client can just click on the canvas, can make edits to it and like post comments. And you can go in and just like mark them as like solved, for example, and you exactly know where to make which edits. And at the beginning I was using a software called Markup, but they switched like their pricing model, so I switched to Pastel and it works really well. And also your client will definitely love it, because for them it's really hard to give feedback if they like have to write in a Word document, for example. Pricing wise, it's also really cheap, so I'm mostly on the free plan when I have like one client at a time. If I have multiple, I switch to the pro version, but most of the times like it depends. Like if I don't have too many clients at once, I mostly stay on the free plan. And also like you can get started with the free plan, which is more than enough. So after you send your clients the design on Pastel, we move into the design revisions. So your client will submit all the feedback at some point, or for example a deadline. You stop the feedback, you can pause all the comments on the canvas, which will make it easier to work on the feedback because your client can't submit new ones. So then you go in and fix the client feedback. So if they want to change images, if they want to change text, for example, it's really simple to do, and like you just mark them as resolved. And then you repeat this step depending on the number of revisions you offer. So for example, if you offer 3 revision rounds, you make all the client feedback, then you create like a new version in Pastel. You can create for the same website, create a new version, and then they can comment again. And then you repeat that how many times you want to offer revisions. So let's say the client is happy with the design after revision round 1, for example. Then we move into section number 3. And section number 3 is development. So at that point, we get a little bit more technical. So you create the client sub-account inside of GoHighLevel, which is really simple. And you also have like all the information you need. So the address, the contact information, like staff members and everything you need is already all there. So you can create the sub-account really easily. And then you start to develop the design inside of GoHighLevel. There are 2 ways to do that. You can like just embed the design you did with Gemini 3 inside of GoHighLevel. I have a different video where I show you how I'm doing that, but I don't really recommend that if the client wants to make changes themselves. If you are not really tech savvy, you don't know how to build GoHighLevel websites, you definitely can get a developer to do that for you. So after you develop the website using like the code embed, or like you developed it manually, Then you send the client the final result using Pastel. So at that point, you get a URL that you can send your client, and you also can embed that inside of Pastel, which is like really nice. So you can just send the link over and it's done. By the way, if you want to see how this looks inside of GoHighLevel from the agency view, so within your agency sub account with all the automations and everything, because like everything I'm showing you here is like basically automated with automation. So I made it for myself as easy as possible so I don't have to do anything like really manually. So if you want to see that, make sure to leave a comment down below and I might make a video about that. So after sending the final result to the client, we move into section number 4, which is then the launch. So at that point, the client is happy with the website, everything looks fine. Now we need to connect the client's domain, so the website is actually live. And we also need to connect the client's social accounts. And for example, if you're offering like automations or like the calendar or so, you definitely want to do like an onboarding call with them to like connect everything and to get like everything set up. And finally, we move into section number 5, which is offboarding, and there you do a demo call, so you show them how the platform works. So for example, how the account booking is working, like where they can find like inquiries or like their staff members and everything. Like you want to show them the entire platform, because if they are not using the platform, they will cancel, and that's the last thing we want to do. And the final and last step is upselling. So depending on the offer you are creating and the offer you are selling, now is the point where you can upsell them. So if you, for example, offer Google Ads, if you offer reputation management, like everything that's not included in your base offer, you can upsell right now, which is like the main point of like this entire process. And the client should be really happy at this point, because like his website is like launched and now you can upsell them. And if you now want to see how a web design agency website looks like that actually gets clients, watch this video next.